In Nevada County, every day is a second chance. At Sammie's Friends, we shelter, heal, and rehome pets who've been forgotten. We're a nonprofit animal shelter in Nevada County, California, and every day we help injured, abandoned, and forgotten pets find love and a second chance. From emergency vet care to forever homes, Sammie's Friends is here because people like you care. From heartbreak to home, with your help, Sammie's Friends is saving lives every day. Adopt, donate, volunteer, because every tale deserves a happy ending.
Now I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Richard Jackson, veterinarian, and thank you for being with us today, Dr. Jackson.
Sure.
A couple of questions that I have for you that were posed for me to ask you, and vet prices are extraordinarily up there right now. Can you tell us about that?
A little bit. So a lot of it's out of our control, but the economy is part of it, of course, and with that trickle down with the salaries needing to be paid adequately for our staff so that we can remain open. And if you can't take care of them, you can't be open. Mm-hmm. It's a real frustration and a challenge to us who are working there because we want to help everybody.
Right.
Every life matters, and our goal has to be trying to get some help to them. And of course, with the fosters, like we saw just earlier, that's a huge help. And with Sammie's Friends, I'm happy to be a Sammie's Friend. It's incredibly important that this organization is here to fill in around the edges for folks that are trying to make ends meet. And they have provided over a number of years. I've been there 2 going on 3 years now. Sammie's Friends has always been there to help with cost factors when it begins to exceed what may be affordable for a family.
I tell you, my wife and I have been here 4 years. We transplanted over from the Bay Area. It didn't take me long at all for us to know, about Sammie's Friends and what they mean to the community. They're a beloved community entity out here. And they're also nonprofit too, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. So keep that in mind. Well explained.
Well, kind of partially. The second part of that has to do with kind of what's going on in the veterinary industry.
Okay.
Over the years, as veterinarians have aged out, you usually turn your practice over to the people that are working there, mm-hmm. and the practice has some value, so it helps your retirement a bit to turn it over to them, and it usually has some value, so they buy out what's there, the inventory, and something for the value of the business. That's all easily calculated, and that's just how that works. It's usually been fairly reasonable in line with the economy. Inflation hasn't been nearly what it's been the last 10 years. So that's become a factor. And over the years, the last 10 or so, I would hazard to guess, larger businesses, corporations, that sort of thing, have taken an interest in veterinary medicine because they recognize how important it is for the communities all over the country.
Right.
And they've provided an alternative source for purchasing practices and running them. Initially, it was at considerable cost savings because they can buy in bulk and that sort of thing. And to a large extent, that's completely true. That helps keep things going. But the ownership was transferred from veterinarians and veterinary ethics to corporations who are concerned as a business entity, and that's all well and good. It's fine. But we've lost a little bit of the control over that, and that's contributed to some degree to prices kind of kicking up a little bit here and there. Just the benefit to the veterinary community is just that it allowed you to retire in a much more dependable time frame. So, so that's part of it, and that we've lost a little bit of our control over that. Coupled with the economy right now, it's a real challenge to try to provide service to every client, and especially every animal that comes in. That's the challenge before veterinarians and veterinary hospitals, to try to be there for everybody.
Understood.
And that's why Sammie's Friends is so important. And other entities, other nonprofits, if there aren't, although Sammie's Friends is at the top of the list.
I'd like to ask you a question, if you don't mind transitioning.
Sorry.
At what age, well explained, thank you. At what age do you suggest spay and neutering for dogs and cats?
That's another good question. The bias over the years has kind of waxed and waned. There was a time when they were all done very young. It's easier, it's less expensive, and for the most part, it's successful. Then the bias has shifted a little bit towards letting them be a little older, a little stronger, less likelihood of any difficulties.
A couple years old, would you say, or 1 year?
Cats, 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
So to give you kind of round numbers, but dogs, there's some value in spaying after they've got some age and size to them, but there's some benefits in not letting them have too many heat cycles, because that seems to prime them for some mammary cancer later. So there's a benefit in not waiting too long.
Right.
But there's recent information out that when you spay young, it can interfere with some of the growth of their bones. Hips in particular have been implicated in early spays, as a very small percentage of those female dogs maybe don't grow quite with the perfection that you'd expect, and there's more coming in on that as to whether or not it rolls over in all the other breeds.
So you
too.
might suggest then, Doctor, stay in touch with your veterinarian with regards to your special pet to see the most appropriate time.
Yeah, certainly. So we're thinking at least a year old for most dogs.
I got you.
And German Shepherds maybe even a couple of heat cycles. So
right.
the bones are done growing when they're 2 years old.
Question: what recommendations would you have for caring for pets to people out there who might be new at having a doggy or cat?
That's a great question. Broad topic, lots of different needs for all the different species.
Right.
But by and large, you can look at them kind of like kids. You want to keep them from getting too hot in the car. That's one thing that's really important to mention this time of the year coming into the summer. You just shouldn't leave them in a car.
I've got 15 seconds left.
Oh, okay.
So I'm getting the sign.
All right. Okay. Well, getting good professional advice from nonprofits like Sammie's, because they can answer most questions. They have behavioral professionals there, and then your veterinary community should be available to help you with most of the other questions.
Dr. Richard Jackson, veterinarian out of Auburn, California, thank you so much. We'll be right back.